Oh yeah, it showed up on Facebook. Why isn't it on YouTube?
I don't know.
Okay, well that's good anyway. So, oh,
So,
let me back.
but you're recording this too, right? So we can put it. Oh, it's on a YouTube now.
Yep. Oh, it is. Okay, good. Okay, so if you can you watch you watch the YouTube chat? I'll watch the Facebook chat.
You got it.
Maybe we
Fantastic.
need more monitors. Okay, so
All
I
right.
guess I'm gonna start this. I gotta mute all my yeah. Okay, make sure YouTube's not playing. Okay, yes, this is welcome to episode number 11. And Phil Zeo has been here so many times. He's pretty much the co-host. He's here again. Um, we have really important stuff today.
And
Like
none of
let's
it has
see,
anything to do with the stuff that's on my screen.
yeah. So first of all, I think Phil, you just came back from a honeymoon, or tell me you're not on your honeymoon right now.
No, I actually came back from my honeymoon. It was in Aruba, and it was wonderful. The coming back through New York was significantly less wonderful,
Oh.
but Aruba was pretty wonderful.
So what do you do in Aruba? Did you go swimming?
Actually, my wife and I don't really swim much. I'm a pretty bad swimmer, and I can only like swim on my back.
No.
And she doesn't really swim at all. She'll do like little doggy paddles and floating and stuff. And she also doesn't like the beach that much. In fact, there's the entire island of Aruba is a beach.
Yep.
So because it's only 40 kilometers long, like there's only so much you can do on Aruba. And going from the one side of the island to the other only takes like 40 minutes by car. So no matter where we went, there was a beach. So one of the days she said, "Let's go to the beach. I'm really excited to go to the beach." And I was like, "That doesn't sound like anything I've known you for the last 4 years. Did something change when we got married?" But she said, "No, actually, we're going to go to the beach. I'm going to sit down on a towel, and then I'm going to kick the ocean, splash it a couple of times, just to show it its place, tell it who's boss. Then I'm going to go back, hope the ocean doesn't attack me, and I'm going to sunbathe until I get sand all over and I start to curl up in a ball and cry." I was like, that explains why we never went to a beach.
Uh,
Yeah. She's like, we could always expedite the process and leave, go to dinner or something before I start crying. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. I'm happy with that one.
so
It was a wonderful day.
here I am in Hawaii. And I barely ever go to the beach, and as a Hawaiian, I don't like beer, I don't eat fish, and I can barely swim. So I'm the worst Hawaiian ever made. Um, Rob is I didn't have him monitoring at the time. Are you hearing him now? Okay, or do you still need to turn him up? Oh,
Rob?
okay. Hold on. Let's try this now. Oh, okay. So it has. Sorry, guys. We're trying a Skype input for OBS, and I am not sure. It's got two different stream sources now, so I'm not sure. They look like they're identical, so we'll see. So here's what it looks like if you want to see recursion. Um, so when Phil talks, both of these are going to go. I only had one of them playing earlier. I'm not sure if yeah, who knows? This may not be the smartest way to do either that, or you just have to turn your volume up. But anybody hearing okay out there now? Let me know if you guys can hear Phil okay.
I hope so, because if you can't hear me, this is going to be a really weird conversation.
Yeah. Um. So now Rob's ignoring us, of course. Damn you, Rob. Now we're not. Now Phil's not going to give you his waves discount coupons and
Which I did. I copied it right before the stream. I said, I'm going to give this to Rob so we can get 10% off whatever he wants to buy.
All right. So we got you're back from your honeymoon, and your wife's okay with you being on a stream and still playing with audio instead of getting a real job.
Yeah, actually, oh man, I've been doing so much audio installation work. Like, I've been working real cutting edge, like, came out in the last couple of months kind of tech.
Oh, wow.
And I've been exhausted by it every single day, traveling to Philly to do this massive network installation of all audio and video streaming stuff. And it is a total nightmare. but
Cool.
it's been a lot of fun at the same time because I've got to play with some stuff that's way over my head. But yeah, I've nonstop been playing with audio stuff since I got back. Unfortunately, none of it's my studio stuff, so I haven't had a lot of time to just sit down and mix and
Uh,
record.
so are you doing some Dante stuff?
Dante, we're doing a lot of stuff with Atlona products, ATLONA, which
What is
is
that?
like it's real new cutting edge stuff. A lot of it has Dante, but a lot of it's also HD based T. A lot of it is network multicast protocol stuff. So there are so many switches and network backbones and all fiber and like 10 gigabit switch SFPs and like it's a huge. I can't even describe it as an installation. It is a huge development. It is a project. It is massive. Like I've never been involved in anything so big in my life, and it's really been wearing on me pretty heavily. But I think we're getting to the point where it's almost done.
Oh
The
man.
problem is, and this is something that I haven't been able to find anywhere, the very last pieces we need for the installation to be complete and the integration to be complete are 70-volt speakers that are not mounted but will go flush into a wall that are 6.5 inches exactly in diameter, are weatherproof, and have 60-watt taps.
I have
It's
no idea.
it's incredibly difficult. It's very specialized, and we're struggling to find them because nobody makes any of those with anything bigger than like 30 watts.
Oh
So,
wow.
but that's what they want, so it's what they're gonna get. Oh man, it's a really tough situation. Like a lot of scope creep, a lot of changing at the last minute stuff, and the programs that are being built for this are literally being designed by the liaison from Atlona who came in on Monday and is working with us all this week to program everything that we need. Like it is, we're getting these programs designed for us basically.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane.
If we ever do the Avengers origin story of Reaper, man, there's some stuff like that with Justin and some LA studios, just right in front of everybody, just creating the program is pretty awesome.
I would love to see stuff like that because I'm a huge Reaper nerd, man. I'm excited to see what version 6 brings.
Oh man.
It's going to be so exciting.
Oh, speaking of Dante, here's Tim Gray right here. All right. So yeah, so if you're going to do all these installations and stuff, this is the guy you gotta fly this guy in for a couple things too. You saw the Dante episode. Tim was on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what else we got. So you're changing the whole network audio world now, and back from your honeymoon.
It's
What
not
was
just the entire company and some outside companies that are building it while we're just integrating it, so to speak. We're doing the test runs, making sure they're viable in the real world.
man? Well, tell them we got a music school in Kailua, and if you got something that you need to get everything into each room, so that they can all use something together. That's kind of what I'm trying with the Dante stuff, but we're willing guinea pigs down here, and if they need to go surfing and stuff, we got a place for them to hang out.
Yeah. Dante stuff's going to be great for that, especially as it's further fleshed out and the latency keeps getting lower and lower. I know that with every firmware update they push, they try to shave a couple of fractions off the milliseconds, but a lot of it's also dependent on the switch technology that exists.
Huh.
I'm sure that as we get more Dante certified switches out there, we'll get more lower and lower latency times.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think their hardware. Yeah, you know what? I don't even want to. I'm gonna leave the Dante stuff alone right now. But let's
Well,
see.
you asked.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I wanted to know about that. There's some other stuff going on with Dante that's a little bit more frustrating. But how's your? So what was how are you doing with your? You had some big, I think Google news a couple a month ago now.
Yeah, we doing some work with Google, trying to get stuff put together. Mainly, like, okay, so there's the company side of it, and the company, the big wigs in the offices, as in like, my family who have been on the business side of it and not so much the tech side of it. They want to do Google for advertising, and so of course we have AdWord campaigns and AdSense and all that stuff. But I wanted to take our industry and create a compelling framework for people to discover things, to explore concepts and ideas, to learn, to share stuff, and like get interviews and processes and behind the scenes news and updates and all this cool stuff, reviews, everything you can imagine that a person could want from an audio perspective, so to speak. And I want to make that an entire social media and multimedia campaign. So the business side of it, they want to make it like an advertising campaign. But my side of it, I really want to design this structured platform out there to be not like the skeptic community, but stuff more like Linus Tech Tips and guys like Markiplier, they're both amazing people and they do great work and they bring millions of people together at a time, and that's really, really cool. I want to be able to do that for our industry because we've seen that it can work for gaming and for IT and for like all these different sub communities, but nothing has really popped up for people who are interested in music and audio outside of like the meme channels and the angry guy yells at walls channels and stuff like that. Like we get the angry video game nerd who started a lot of the video game themed review stuff, right? But since then it's evolved, and now you get dedicated channels where there are communities built around reviewing and understanding and doing updates for the latest stuff and all the news and all that. Well, I think we're still in the angry video game nerd phase of audio YouTube, so to speak. So we're not quite there yet, but I want to build that into a community where people can go to this channel, which we're going to be building. And we're doing it with the help of Google so that we can really start it from the ground up, running strong, and build a whole, I like to use the word empire, but a campaign that's based on more than just advertising. And we don't want it to directly advertise to people. We want it to be a wealth of information and a source that people can go to, which is way more important than advertising on my side. Like I said, the company wants it to be advertising, but I don't.
Yeah, we can do both. That's pretty cool.
That's the goal anyway.
Okay, I'm going to try and add a pop filter to you real quick. Let me see.
Oh, actually, I could probably put a windscreen on, which will do the exact same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to test the filter thingies on this, but that's okay.
Crank the high end on my voice, bro. Give me a good old 12K boost.
Oh, what am I using? Oh, you know what you call the guy who makes Tri-Leveler said, "Hey, use Re.js and throw that in there, and then you can run Tri-Leveler in OBS because OBS wouldn't run it through the VST way." And it's actually working, I think.
Re.js? What is that?
It lets you run JS plugins in other software besides Reaper.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could have gotten that from the name, but where is that?
I think it's in the standalone replugs that you can get off the front page at Reaper.fm.
Yeah, but I don't use that because I use Reaper itself.
Yeah. Hold on. So.
I wish it was regular Reaper.
Well, yeah. So you would so I think let's see recomp, rexcomp, redelay. Hold on. Let me see. I wonder if I can switch your screen off without switching your sound off. Let's see. No, that's okay. So refer, regate, restream, Re.js right here. Okay, so yeah. So that's what I'm running. I'm scared to pop mine up on OBS because I have a feeling OBS will just crash because that's how OBS likes to roll. But yeah, you could run. I'm running. I think I'm running Tri-Leveler on mine right now.
That's
So
pretty sweet.
okay, so let me see. What else do I have? Um, oh yeah, so we're tomorrow. We're having the grand opening of our first guitar center in Hawaii, and so I'm fasting today and tomorrow so I can drive out there. It's not far as the crow flies, but if I get stuck in traffic, I'm in trouble. So if I don't eat, we'll be okay. So I'm going to be out there, and I made some 1990s video business cards that I'll be handing out. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, awesome. We're going to have a guitar center here, and you know that's the good and the bad. But you know, it's a good thing, I think.
What's your
And
streaming setup look like then? Like, do you just have Tri-Leveler into anything else, or is it like a gate, then an EQ, then Tri-Leveler?
okay, let's see. Let me pull this
Oh,
over here. Uh,
glorious recursion.
so I think this is it right here. Yeah. So this is the
Okay,
JS version
gate.
of Tri-Leveler. But yeah, everything else is
Man,
turned
that's
off. So this is the only plugin that's actually running.
Wow, that's really cool. And is that acting on just your voice, or is it acting on the stream as well?
Just the mic. I could put it
Okay,
on
cool.
the stream. I think I'm not sure how, but maybe.
It's all good. My entire streaming setup is. Let me actually recreate it in Reaper for you right now. You're gonna find this to be incredibly silly. It is this, if you can see it. It's just a gate into Nomad Factory's AS rack,
Oh wow.
and this is my preset for it. So, well, let me. Hello, check 1 2. Oh right, no, I have my input assigned to the Skype stream, so I'm not gonna be able to run it through Reaper. But
Uh,
it's literally just this. I run it through a compressor and then this exciter for a little bit of high end and low end boost, and then I crank some of that stuff, and I'm like, woo, lots of EQ. Because usually I'm using my RE320, which is a dynamic mic, and it's a little bit dark. And then I
whoa.
cut some of that high end to act as like a de-esser a little bit, you know. So this is like a Pultec style EQ. And then I just run it into one more compressor at the end, just a little bit fast and hard. So kind of 1170-60, but a little bit slower than that.
Okay. Yeah, so I used to love that broadcast plugin, and it turns out that the guy who makes that tone booster stuff is the guy who used to make those things. So I emailed him and I was like begging, "Can you remake your broadcast?" And he said, "Oh, maybe one day." So looking forward to that. But so far, Tri-Leveler is working pretty good to do the same sort of thing, unless we get
Certainly
an
seems like it.
Orban Optimod or something. So yeah, if anybody out there, if we keep doing this, I'm probably gonna end up having to buy vMix and then pay every month to get this thing to like restream IO or whatever. But so right now I'm trying to use the new YouTube Stream Beta, but if I do that, there's no way to get Google Hangouts in, and so I'd have to use Skype anyway, which we're doing today and testing it out, and it seems to be working. So, but if anybody has ideas out there, let me know. And if anybody out there is good with Mailchimp and Gravity Forms, let me know. And
That's so oddly specific compared to
yep,
everything
oh
else.
yeah,
Like,
man,
how
I need
Mailchimp.
web help here in Hawaii, big time. Um,
What
but
was the other thing we were actually going to talk about today? Because I remember you saying, "Oh, can you talk about this thing?"
yep, yeah, we'll get to that in. Oh, wait a second, is my screen, is the screen backwards for anybody that's watching the stream?
Nope, it looks fine to me.
Why does it look backwards on my end even on Facebook? Oh, this
What?
is so. Yeah, my Facebook
YouTube
stream
is
shows it
great.
backwards. Anybody on Facebook seen this thing backwards? Is Phil's Reaper screen? Oh no, that's right side up. Never mind. I'm fired.
So confused.
Okay.
All right, so what was the thing you wanted me to weigh in
Okay.
on?
So what I really wanted to talk about, because this is a thing that gets me kicked off of every forum and out of every Facebook group, and it's something I see that the noobs get nailed for all the time, that's just what is the most basic recording interface you can get that'll let you do all the stuff that we're talking about all the time, and sound just fine, and in fact probably better than the best stuff could sound 20 years ago. But that's an arguable thing. But what is it that you really, you don't need to buy whatever flavor of the month that they're selling and everybody's pimping on every single site and Mix Magazine and whatever. What would you use if somebody just wanted to write some songs and they were just going to use virtual instruments and they were just gonna, the only thing they're ever going to do is sing? What's the basics you think they should get?
Okay, normally I recommend like a Presonus audio box for something like that, but bang for your buck, the Behringer UMC 404 HD is the thing that I found myself going to the most out of anything for my Gorilla and remote recording stuff. So like my mobile rig is built with these three things. You've got my RE320, my Behringer UMC 404 HD, and my Presonus Tube Pre. So all that, I took that with my little ThinkPad laptop from like a couple years ago that I bought at a thrift store, right? Real cheap. It was like 150 bucks. I got the UMC 404 for, well, less than I'm probably allowed to say because we're a Behringer dealer. But even if I didn't get it for that price, I still would have bought it on Amazon for like however cheap they're selling it because it is ridiculously low cost. My mic is an RE320 that I like the most, but you can get some real good deals on eBay for like an ST59 from Sterling Audio or this Galaxy Audio thing. Like, there's a whole bunch of cool mics and obscure mics on eBay that you can get for stupid cheap. And if it's an instrument, I'd say just go with an i5. You can usually find those for like 50 bucks on eBay. And if it's just a vocal thing or a voiceover, Sennheiser E835 is going to give you such a killer bang for your buck. It's not even funny, and you'll be able to use it live.
Yeah, we use those for our kids live.
Yeah,
I think that's
so
the
like
835.
I love those.
Looks like a 58 kind of.
Kinda. Actually, I can pull up exactly what it would look like. Let me just pull this up here. Sennheiser E835. So they're the traditional like blue gray body.
Yeah, that's it.
Looking thing.
That's the one. That's what our kids use.
Mics. These are the ones that I like more than pretty much any Shure mic. I do like the PGA 58 though, so if you're going really cheap, getting the PGA and not the PG, I like those way more than the PGs, and I like those way more than the SMs.
What's the difference between the PGs and the PGAs?
Well, for one thing, the frequency response is way better. It goes higher than an SM, and also, secondarily, they're black and they have a better switch.
So wait, that's the PGA or the PG?
This is the PGA.
So the PGA is the better one.
Yes, the PGA is way better. The PGs were still based on the really old tech that the SMs were based off of, and I don't like the frequency response curves of the SMs. And you can tell that they're supposed to be like the cheaper version of the SM58. But the PGA is its own thing at the same price range as the PG without trying to be a knockoff but actually improve on the designs of the SMs. So I like it way more. So if you're going stupid cheap, this is what I would go for as a vocal microphone. But if you're willing to spend a few bucks, the Sennheiser E835 is an amazing mic that I would trust live and in studio as well.
So what are you speaking into right now?
The Galaxy Audio like ST238 or something.
So that's basically like the same large diaphragm condenser that's floating around the internet right now. For some of them are $20, some of them are $200, some of them are $1,000.
Yeah, let me actually check.
Or is that an electret one? Is that an electret or is that an actual regular condenser? You'll pull the screen off right now live on the air and have all the guts fall out of it?
No, I can't do that. That would make me unhappy. Let me check the microphone that is there. So this is going to be super exciting to people who love looking at pages of products. One. It would be.
So you guys see how he kind of just skipped right through the interface. Like he's like, "Oh, this interface works," and then moved on to the microphones. And that's something that I get nailed. I mean, you guys have seen me get kicked out of everywhere for this, but generally, in my mind, products are so good now that it actually costs you more to make a crappy one because you would have to specially design it for that. The basic chips that we have that can go in things are pretty decent, and you can get a pretty good signal noise ratio, low distortion, high good frequency bandwidth, and pretty flat frequency response on just about anything. I mean, you could pay more and get a little bit better, but laws of diminishing returns are coming in, and sometimes people make claims that, oh, this one magically actually changes the sound. So I would argue that a flatter one for cheap is going to be better to me than one that's going to like distort the hell out of it and do weird things to it by paying $5,000 a channel for it. So here's his mic.
Here's the mic that I got, and I got it for like 50 or 60 bucks on eBay.
Oh, it's a multi-pattern?
Because it is a multi-pattern. So I was able to put it in figure 8 mode, I'm able to make it an omni mic, and I'm able to do cardioid stuff. Now, what I like a lot about it is not only how cheap it was, but when I do the omni mode especially, there's this great dip that happens right after 1.5K, which I always boost.
Let me move this. Okay.
Where it slightly cuts 2 to 4K, which I usually cut on vocals because those are pretty harsh to me. And there's a boost over like 8K. So if it's an omni mode, I have to be in a really quiet room because it's an omnidirectional mode.
Yeah,
of course.
I was about to say.
If I have that, then it has all of the EQ changes that I would usually make to my vocal anyway. So I really like that. And it was just built into the mic that way. So I was really lucky to find a mic like this for so cheap. But eBay has amazing deals, especially on discontinued products like this one. This is the ST228L. Highly recommend. But yeah, there's so much good stuff out there that you really don't need to focus on anything in terms of brand or cost. You really just have to focus on finding what you like most because it's all flavor at this point.
Wait, so did you just put the... How is there a tri-leveler on your screen? What is that? That's the Reaper one, right? Okay, yeah, I was thinking, you had the ReJS. Never mind. Okay, so that's what they're gonna need an interface. They're gonna need a mic.
Yep.
And they're gonna need.
But if they have a the UMC 404 HD, which I just bring it up because it's the least expensive, but it's also one of the highest quality. Period. It's survived so many sessions with me, traveling to different studios and dingy basements and these really small practice rooms in music schools and the back corners where it's literally should have been a closet, but there's a whole drum set there and it's just no space. And I'm setting it up on end tables, the little TV dinner tables and stuff with just my laptop and then the interface and then my two pre, and I got it all wired together in really small space. That Behringer has survived all of that and more, and it's still my go-to. But it's also got 4 inputs, and I think 4 or 6 outputs that make it really useful for stuff like reamping if you need that. If I wanted to, I could set it up for a 4-part harmony thing or a stereo mic spread and then a kick and a snare. Or a Glyn Johns style drum kit miking technique. There's a lot you can do with 4 inputs.
Yeah, I mean, think about
so that entire mobile is that.
Back when I was learning, think about how much we did with the 4-track cassette that had only 2 simultaneous inputs at a time. So thinking you got 4 channels at a time, oh man, and unlimited.
That's how
tracks.
I feel. I mean, my rack over here, I'm using a 2-channel interface for my desktop audio, and that's just devoted to Windows. And then the rest of my rack is an 8-channel with 20 outputs total.
And what is
So
that?
I have so much I/O on my rack. But when I'm going mobile, I only need 4. It's great.
So let's see. So I mean, the basics that we need. So we need an interface. you need a computer, obviously, and hopefully I'll have
Yeah.
Jim Roseberry later on to talk about that. But for my opinion, it's hard to find a computer made in the last 5 to 10 years that ain't gonna run at least decent stuff. I mean, the crappiest thing you could find at Best Buy right now, as long as it's an actual Intel processor, is way more powerful than the computer I mixed a whole lot of albums on. So it's ridiculous now. So okay, sorry, I keep messing this up. So computer, interface, microphone, the cables, of course, and then if Scott shows up, the big one, monitoring. Like I've started experimenting. Hopefully we can have Brandon Heyer on here. I've started experimenting with mixing on headphones. I've had my mastering engineer run through one already. And speaking of which, so Phil is on the victory lap for having bested me at the Reaper mix contest this once. I forgot.
Won place.
For some reason, I didn't even put the background vocals on. I didn't know there were some, so I didn't put that on. Plus, I mixed with headphones. Plus, I read way too late that we're allowed to use any plugins. I just read the Reaper plugins, but I just used the Reaper plugins. But I was actually pretty happy with it.
If I had only used Reaper plugins, and I can guarantee that. And here's why. The way I talked to the guy, Dave, who runs the competition, the way I talked to him about it was this. All right, so I had 3 hours to mix because I'd just gotten back from Aruba. I'd actually just gotten back from New York, which never puts a person in a good mood. And I was sitting here in a new room because this is a new home.
Oh, wow.
I've never mixed in this room before. And I didn't use headphones, which I should have. I should have mixed on these headphones because these are the headphones I use to mix almost every album I work on.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't. I used these monitors. And then he said, yeah, go ahead, use any plugin you want. So instead of just pulling up the noise gate and recomp and re-EQ and doing everything I need to with those and just going boom, 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 and just getting all my settings the way I wanted, I sat there thinking, what compressor should I use? Is that going to be the right choice for this song?
Oh, man.
I don't know, man. This song's different. Should I use a more characterful compressor, or should I use something that's real tight? Should I use something smooth? Should I use a waves compressor, or should I use a modeled compressor? And just sitting there thinking about the choices I had. I don't even think that way when I'm using the real plugins in real life.
Man.
When I'm working on an actual thing, I know exactly what I want to go to. But for this competition, the fact that I was told, use any plugin, even non-Reaper plugins, I was like, what am I going to use? How am I going to use something that's not a Reaper plugin for the Reaper contest? I don't understand. And so I ended up just not doing things I would have otherwise, which really screwed me. I'd been winning first place for months.
Oh, wow. That's the first one I was
roll.
on.
And now I'm third. And I swear it's because of that combination of things. It's really not that bad.
Well, I
actually was third every single time before this competition.
Oh.
Before this year, I was always third. And then I started to win first. And I got that taste for first place. And I was like, fresh blood. It's meat now. Anything less is going to be like grade D meat. And I don't want that. I want the best cuts. So I got a little obsessed with winning.
Well, it's cool having that contest, especially when it's just the Reaper plugs and you can actually look at other people's how they're doing stuff.
Yeah, I love that part because there are people who I'll give the most criticism to during feedback part of the month, where you're supposed to go in and listen to everybody's mixes and then say oh, mix one, you did this, this, and this, I would change this. Or you did great on this, but this could use work. Everybody does it differently. I love to overanalyze the mixes and assume that I know nothing about what they did coming into it and try to build a story in my head about what they were mixing on, where they were mixing it, and how it got mixed, what genres they usually listen to. And a couple of times I've been like, This sounds like indie rock for like the kind of mix I would expect for an indie rock song. Are you a big indie fan who does stuff with a lot of like acoustic instruments? And the guy was like, "Yeah, actually, this is my first time mixing something with all these electric instruments." And I was like, "I figured because it sounds the way I would expect it to." But I still learn a lot from how people mix stuff, even if it's not applicable to that specific mix. So I'll go in during feedback time and I'll just steal a whole bunch of techniques and shelve them away in my head and be like, that would be cool on an EDM track. This would be awesome on a hip hop track, even if we're mixing a metal song or a soft rock song, you know?
It's a good trick. But and so
Yeah, I'm always trying to steal.
I kind of put this into six categories that I had. So I had the computer, the interface, the mic, the monitoring, the even though it's kind of part of the monitoring, it's not necessarily so. But the room stuff, room acoustics, room stuff, and but the most important one of all, and this is the one like people get mad, but again, and this is one where there's so much scam involved, as much as the gear, is education. So that number six, the yeah. So here goes you with your list. So computer interface, mic, monitoring, room, and education. Like knowing how to use this stuff. Like I used to have this chart that kind of made the way it's. I'm sure it's on the Reaper forum where we put this we put things in different size of fonts, and we'd have like the big huge font say like the writing of the song, and then there'd be a slightly smaller font the playing of the song, and slightly way smaller font the instruments used, and then in tiny little letters where you could barely even read them, the brand of gear you used, and so but I mean this is kind of the same kind of list where with the right education. I think most of these other ones get a lot smaller, and but there are so many scammy education sites out there. It makes me just about as ill as the scammy gear sites. But
Have you heard of Slick Guitars?
no,
Okay, so Earl Slick, right?
yeah,
If you look him up, you'll see all the stuff he's been involved with. He was involved with David Bowie, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Rob Smith. He worked with John Waite, Tim Curry, David Coverdale. Like he's worked with every serious recording artist, basically. He's the guy that you hear on tracks playing alongside of like George Harrison or in place of George Harrison while George Harrison
yeah.
would do lead parts and stuff like that. Like he's that guy. He's Earl Slick. He sells some of these guitars for like $200, and they sound better than the Gibson equivalents. And I'm sure that makes Gibson mad.
Oh man,
Look at this, $209. That, and he makes these by hand. He literally makes them by hand. Like he'll just spend a day designing one for purchase. So once you buy it, he'll make it.
oh wow.
It's really cool. But then again, people want a Gibson and they want to spend $6,000 on this, but with a sticker that says Gibson, or
Yeah.
this, but with like the headstock slightly different.
Yeah, I'm a fanatic for that rondo music stuff. Like I've got agile guitars all over my walls here, and I got a lot of videos up like showing how to scallop them and stuff. But it's just like a mic preamp. You can measure. There's measurable qualities about guitars. You can measure how straight the neck's going to be. Like what kind of frets did it come with? What are the frets made out of? And you can get from World Music Industries, for instance, it's one of these companies that makes guitars for everybody. You can get really killer $200, $300 guitars. My neck throughs cost $400 or $500, but they're beautiful and I love them. And I'll put them against anything. And I'm lucky because I come from a genre where instruments traditional instruments like from Gibson or Fender were seen. And I come from like old school hardcore punk, not metalcore hardcore punk, but like these are seen as symbols of decadence. So they're not even brands you would want. You wouldn't want a Gibson. You wouldn't want a Fender because it's for old people that go around selling slaves or whatever, whatever not that they are, but I mean that's just the way you would look at it from back then. And to me, I don't see anything in a Gibson that makes it superior to Iron Angel. We talk about all the time how we would buy these $100 Dean Vendettas, and if you're talking about a bolt-on neck guitar, I mean that's the one thing Gibson has over these things is that it's a glued in. I mean, if you call that a positive. But these are necks with square profiles, so they feel pretty much the same at the nut as at the bridge. They come with way better frets than you usually get on a Gibson. They come with a really good truss rod that actually works, and two humbuckers and 24 frets, which is something I want. And so for $100, you get this killer guitar, and for me to spend $5,000 on a Gibson, it'd be a step down. I'm losing a couple frets. I'm getting a goofy profile. I'm getting a horrible neck heel. So I mean, it really depends what you're up to. But it's almost like a false premise. Like it's kind of like a when did you stop beating your wife thing. It's like, oh, is this as good as a Gibson? Like we're assuming that the Gibson's better. It's like when we keep talking about analog, which is a whole show I want to do. Like we're making this false premise that this old thing with a limited set of knobs and noise and distortion crap. This is the ideal that you want to strive for. No, you might want to emulate it, but it's not. To me, it's not an ideal. It's just a flavor,
That's how I feel about a lot of the vintage stuff. Like I've worked at places that were throwing out their Neves, like just radio stations that were like, we don't need a Neve. This stuff's old.
Yep.
We want this crisp new, I don't know, Digico board, which. Having the word digital in your company's name would have been an automatic disreputable thing to have among like Vintage King fanatics, the kind of people who sit on Vintage King all day and just wait for the prices to go from 3.5 thousand to 3.2 thousand before they hit okay. Like those are the kinds of people that'll be like, I can't believe they would get rid of that. But then it's not about what's used to be great. It's about what is great and fulfills their needs. That's why radio stations get rid of all that stuff.
Radio stations and TV stations have a job, and that job is to get work done and to not brag to other engineers about what gear they have. So now that it's years and years later, I can say it. They're probably out of business by now, but we used to buy all the stuff that we'd resell to all the vintage snobs. We would buy it from a company called Radio Quebec, which became Tele-Quebec later on, because they had a policy where they had to get rid of old crap every once in a while, and we would just get piles of Neve stuff, piles of one of the engineers there made his own automation system for the 51 series Neves, and we would buy that stuff, and you could resell it later on to people. And I mean, these radio stations, they just wanted to get back to work, so they're replacing stuff with things that worked and switches that you didn't have to stick toothpicks and zip ties into to hold them down,
I think that's one of the best kept secrets in the industry, is that the real pros are able to mix on anything and will most likely do best just using what they're comfortable with and using what they learned on. And that's how they get the sounds.
Yeah.
It's not the percentage of total harmonic distortion that comes from the crosstalk of two different channels that are hand wound in like the 1930s Jesus. By some small child sitting in a corner in like Italy, just like, this is the one. This is going to eliminate PCB as we know it. Like, no, this is how people learn, is how they get what the best results they can get are, and if you learned on a Neve, you're probably going to do really well. I know that Dan Korneff has a Neve, and his records sound amazing, but he learned on a console. If Joey Sturgis were to use a Neve console, he'd probably be like, this just takes way too long to do all the things I want to do.
Yeah,
and I
can't
just click and drag
Jack.
this send.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the end, people would be like, "Well, that doesn't sound like a Sturgis record. That sounds like maybe one of his earliest Sturgis records. Like, I don't know." But if you told him, "Okay, you can use anything you're comfortable with," you're gonna get the sound you expect, which is the sound of the records. You know.
Yeah.
So find something that, bringing it back to the actual topic, if you're trying to learn how to record and learn what you need, figure out what you're comfortable with using. I know I recommended a whole bunch of stuff that I like using because in the end it was just easiest for me. And like the Behringer showed right up once I got the driver for it, plugged in perfectly. I was able to assign the inputs and outputs with the names I wanted in Reaper, so I was able to map it. And like I tend to like orientation stuff, so like my rack is labeled UX2 top, Fire Studio top, and then Fire Studio bottom, because I like to look at these things and physically see them and not have to think about them. So it's like, oh, input 17 is the Fire Studio 2 with the serial number whatever.
No.
It's going to be the one that's on top, the 7th input. It's easy. If you guys like having something that's real easy, then the Behringer's probably going to be that one. I don't have to worry about all these random driver things and getting that all installed. I just had to go to their website, download Windows driver for Behringer UMC, and it worked great. I didn't have to worry about anything else. And you can install a whole bunch of free plugins and virtual instruments and stuff as well. That'll take away some of the stress of going on the internet and trying to download all those plugins, which you're probably going to end up with anyway, because it's really just a collection of the most used free plugs of like the last decade. So you got all like the Cure House stuff and the classic effects and some Blue Cat things, and it's stuff like that. Just collected. So that's why I recommend that for noobs, because it's got everything you need and it's a great interface.
Yep. So let me get a little bit more detailed on that. So like I was saying earlier, pretty much, I know the Mac faithful are gonna scream about this, but in general, i-series computers, like Intel i-series computers, whether they're Mac or PC, that have been made in the last 5 years, I don't know that it's possible to get one that's slower than what I mixed the first few albums on when I moved to computer. I don't think it's possible. It might be, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. They're all going to pretty much work. So, yes, you can get a much more powerful rig, but generally, I don't think you really got to worry about the computer if it was made in the last 5 years, and if it's an actual Intel i-series thing, not like an ARM or whatever, or whatever the Chromebooks are running on or whatever. For the interface, I think
they don't work too well.
Yeah, I mean, but wait, a modern Celeron is probably still faster than what I used to run. I don't know.
That's true, but the modern operating systems are gonna chew it up and spit it out.
Yeah, that's true. I bet you still could run a whole Reaper session on it. So when you're looking for your interface, I made this chart a long time ago, and I'm always trying to update it. And I'm not Jim Roseberry, and I'm not Vim, but I have run through more interfaces and had to deal with, on the phone, email, whatever, in person, with more interfaces than I would say most of the people out there. And one of the things that I found is, if you measure the actual round trip latency, not the reported latency, not any of that crap.
Just the screen showing on the thing.
Oh yeah, sorry. Let me move this. How do I do this? Skype input. There we go. So this
we
chart.
got it.
Yep. So just type in round trip latency roundup. You'll probably get to this. Again, round trip latency roundup. Yeah, I put it on our music school site, but what I found in life, and maybe this will change one day, but for right now, the lower the round trip latency at any given buffer size that a driver family has, the less likely the driver is to crash, the less CPU it chews up on your computer for any given buffer size. And just in general, the more stable it is. And Vim, who goes by, I think, Tafcat, has a couple charts out there that show just how many plugins you can run at really low latencies. And you'll see it follows the same general pattern. The drivers with the lower round trip latency at a given buffer size run more plugins at any given buffer size as well before they start crackling. I think it was called the what was it called, the Blofeld test or something like that. Do you remember? Have you ever heard this? He had a site called Dawbench. Here, let me pull this up. It's a Dawbench. So he would run like how many billions of Re-X comps or whatever can you run, and you'll always see RME. So this has always been a 2-horse race, RME versus Motu, but nowadays there's a lot more that are kind of closing the gap anyway. But in general, those were the two that were winning. So when I went to test the Behringer HD driver family, and don't mess up because there is one lower set of Behringers that don't come with real ASIO drivers. They make you use ASIO for all, and they're kind of pieces of crap. But when you get to the UMC 204 HD series on up, and just check at their site whether it has an actual ASIO driver or not, the round trip latency was just about where you'd see everything else, which was I mean, it's a little bit slower than the RMEs, a little bit slower than some of the other stuff, but it's way down there. It's a very low. At the last time I checked was 7.6 milliseconds at 64 samples buffer, which is pretty much where everybody else is. You know, you're going to find lower on the RMEs a little bit, but they
I was actually able to get down even lower than that with Wasapi drivers instead of ASIO drivers for a small time, because you can actually set the individual I/O buffers and remove safe mode in the drivers, and you're able to get it down to like 4, 5, 6 round trip latency at 64.
Now, see, I am going to dispute whether or not you were getting an actual round trip latency number out of that.
And it reflects that in Reaper as well as in all of my latency meters.
So one of these days we'll test this stuff for real, because I know you keep thinking you're getting a certain round trip latency with the software version of Dante, and there's no way to beat. There's an 8 milliseconds round trip latency in the software Dante that is not defeatable. That has to be there. So if you're getting anything lower than that, your round trip latency measure thing is broken. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Wasapi version of the Behringer stuff could actually get down to where we're seeing the fastest of the other drivers. Here's the thing, Windows. This is the messed up part. So Sound Blaster, what's it called now? Realtek, the Realtek stuff that comes in every laptop and stuff. Those guys have more money to spend on actually testing things. Like, they should have the very best drivers out there. They're the most integrated with Windows and stuff. So the Wasapi drivers of these crap onboard sound cards should be beating the hell out of the best third-party driver there is out there, and in some way they are.
I have seen that in theory. The problem is the damage it does, not the damage, but like the pressure it puts on the CPU to run a ton of cycles at low latency without the use of the external clock of the interface is terrible. Like, you see dropouts and clicks and pops all over the place. Like the kind of stuff that you're seeing while doing multiple recording sessions and like live streaming video and doing all that stuff over the network and like running bias at the same time.
Yeah.
You're able to do a single track of recording with that much latency and clicking and popping at an extremely low level with the built-in sound cards. And I've done it. I've taken a microphone, the PGA 58 actually, took a mic cable, took a transformer, stepped it down to the 1/8-inch connector, plugged it into the microphone input of the sound card built into a computer, and I recorded stuff. And I took a little M Audio trigger finger and plugged it into USB and played drums. Once I started doing the drum recording, it started to crap out because the CPU was freaking. But this was like a business computer, so it wasn't really one I was supposed to be recording on. But I was doing these experiments to see if I could. And what I found was I could do some ridiculously low latency stuff at the expense of the CPU and stability.
Ah.
And it was really cool, and it proved that hypothesis that, yeah, you can, because they're integrated and you can do a whole bunch of good stuff with it. But having an interface is still really necessary because of CPU.
Yeah, and again, like we were kind of talking a little bit earlier, not really, but ergonomics. You know, having an interface with an actual volume knob on it. Like some don't have it, and I would say don't mess with them. If they don't have a volume knob for your headphones or your speakers or whatever, you're gonna upset yourself eventually. So don't even mess around with that. Yeah, you can do it in software or whatever. I would say don't mess around with that. Get one with the knob. These Behringers that Phil's talking about, they're crazy cheap. I think the 404 I think has MIDI on it as well. It's
As MIDI and MIDI out.
yeah. So I mean, the other on this end of the market, it was like kind of a 2-horse race for a while. Was between Focusrite of all people and PreSonus, where you're seeing these guys fight over this the lowest end of the market. And Focusrite really did some good stuff, and they still are. Like if you really want. Now that Behringer just raised their prices a couple months ago, I think, by about $20. The Scarlets are a little bit more competitive in that market, but I can't remember, but they're, you know, in general, make sure if you want MIDI on board, make sure that these things have it. But if you look at the speed between these things, are about the same. The PreSonus, the Behringer, some pull ahead at certain latencies.
I want to see the difference between the Fire Studio Mobile and the Fire Studio Project. Does it have the two different?
I don't know if I have the project on here. And
can you scroll down a little bit, because my face is covering the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, that's perfect. 7 millisecond. That's actually pretty close to what my Fire Studio Project does. So
yeah, I would be surprised if they're much different. They're a Dice 2, which I don't even want to. Okay, we are 10 years away from Dice 2 now. I don't have to talk about it anymore. I don't have to scream and turn blue and get all mad on here. So, but Phil's still running some Dice 2 stuff. Man, it's his funeral. But, you know, things just run a lot better now. So.
I feel so bad that I hitched my wagon to FireWire. You have no idea how disappointed I am in myself. I was at the cusp of I should have known. I should have just done my research and I should have known. But the price of these interfaces at the time was so good I couldn't turn it up. And I was like, I'm going for it. I'm going to get me a cheap FireWire card. And that should have been my first indication, was when it was hard to get a good FireWire card. But the second indication should have been everybody was talking about the demise of FireWire. Apple wasn't making computers with FireWire anymore. Like, there was nothing supporting FireWire, and I was like, I'll always be able to just get a cheap PCI card for it, but that's not the point. The point is the value of the interfaces now. Now, if I go and get a new computer, I have to get a FireWire card for it and hope it works with the chipsets on board.
Yep. Sucks. But, you know, we're still over here. We have a Focusrite Liquid 56, and that's FireWire, and it's still it's running okay on the, again, buying a FireWire card for it, but it runs. So, and that's Dice 2 as well.
I'm going to get, next time I get one, I'm going to get one of those Behringer, like, XR18s. Because they're really freaking cool. And when, I think it was either Scott or Vern told me that it was actually a USB interface and you could route all the I/O, I was like, that's what I need.
Okay, so here's the thing with that, and I guess we should say this right now. So with the interfaces, you know, figure out how many inputs do you actually need. Yes, it'd all be super nice to have 500 billion inputs, but for most everybody, 2 or 4 inputs is going to be plenty. For a lot of people, 1 input is going to be plenty. But if you really want to be able to expand later on, you got a couple choices. I made a new chart on pipelineaudio.net that shows some of the newer 8-channel interfaces that have 8 channels of mic pre's on them and ADAT ports, which are nice because you can always expand when you have ADAT ports on things. And there's some cheap things that have ADAT ports on them. Behringer makes, in that HD series, Behringer has, I think it's like an 18 something or whatever it is. They have one with an 8-at port.
It's
So if
called the
you
1820, but it's really 8 mic inputs.
what is it called?
It's called the 1820, but it's
Oh,
really 8 mic inputs and then expandable upwards with 8-at. So you'd have
okay.
to get another.
And so does
like three.
Focusrite, and so does Motu. In general, what you're going to do with those things is you're going to buy an 8-channel mic preamp with 8-at out on it. But here's the thing, and this is where the world has gotten strange in the last 5 years. The cheapest you're going to find a really good. Okay, there is a Behringer mic pre for less than $200 that has an 8-at I/O on it,
I think it's actually like 250 now or something.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it's still super cheap. The Behringer, it's the successor to the 8000, which is, I think it's called the 8200. So that's got 8-at in and out, and you could use it with one of these devices. But what's ridiculous now is that you could buy the device that Phil was just talking about, the Behringer XR or XR 18, which has, I think, what is it, 18 actual streams in?
Yeah, it has 16 XLR ins and 2 line ins.
And so that one of the things that makes me really, really mad, I'm not going to go on a crazy rant right now, but manufacturers are real good about hiding how many actual streams these devices present to your computer. Like in my case, I'm looking for ASIO streams or whatever. I think the Behringer XR18 has actually 18 in, and I don't know how many out.
That's what shocked me, because Behringer has historically been bad about that.
Yeah, they'd have two streams.
They used to package Reaper with an evaluation license on their discs, and package like a whole bunch of free effects. Like they still do that kinda, but they don't package Reaper with it anymore. Now they package something they have a license to package it with, and the streams would be like 2 out. It would be a stereo dump, if that. Like sometimes it would just be a mono dump of the control room or whatever output of the mixer.
Yeah, and a lot of mixer companies were doing that. They're like, hey, we're making interfaces now too, and it's like I don't even want to name the companies, but there were some big name companies that were doing this, and it would be 2 out. They're like multi-track record with our new mixer plus interface. And but this XR18, how much is that thing? It's like I think it's less than $800. I mean, it's 500. Okay, so I have a bunch of those Focusrite Octamic things. Those are more than $500 a piece for every 8 channels. This thing you get 16 mic preamps. Is that right? 16 mic preamps on the XR.
16 mic preamps and 2 line preamps.
So you're getting 16 mic preamps for $500. So, and you know, I guarantee you can figure out a way to make 16 inputs work. I certainly can. That's most of the albums I've ever done.
I've never really done more than 18, and that was only because I had a drummer who really, really wanted like 4 room mics, one for every corner of the room. Ugh. And I didn't have enough inputs at the time because he also had like 10 toms. And I was like, I'm running out of space. And he was just like, can we also put 2 more in that corner? And I'm like, yeah, let me just break out my old Behringer Xenix mixer and just start dumping that down to stereo, send it left and right to here. And then, yeah, it was, oh man, that was wild. Because, I mean, I knew I was going to just end up blending the room mics anyway in a folder on Reaper. So that was just easy enough for me to do, you know. But other than that, I've never experienced needing more than 16.
So you know, one of the things about these Behringer drivers is, you know, I don't want to say the name of the company, but the particular drivers they use work really good for the lower input counts. They get a little bit goofy, and I'm sure Jim Roseberry will say a whole lot more about this. They get goofy when you get into the higher track counts. But I've been recording okay with. I have an M32. Which I'm using the USB driver right now because Dante is still broken. Dante guys, but actually they're fixing that now. Hopefully we'll get my Dante back. But I'm running the USB version.
About trying to make stuff better.
Yeah.
Like the default latency used to be like 20 milliseconds added, and that was really noticeable. And then they got it down to I think 16, then 12. Now it's 8. So yeah. I think we're doing pretty okay.
Yeah, well, I'm not worried about the Dante software version. I think that's just so that you'll buy their dongle hardware. But I have the hardware version. That's right now it crashes because of a phone home problem. But
Yeah.
the Behringer X32 and M32 drivers are pretty much the same as the XR18. And so you might have some trouble running under 10 milliseconds round trip latency with that. But then again, if you don't run munching plugins like I do on input, Positive Grid, if you could do an efficiency pass on bias effects too, that'd be nice. You're probably going to be okay. If I run Audio Assault's grind machine or whatever, I can run 500 instances of that. It's not going to skip or make any trouble on me. So
That's what I love so much, especially Grind Machine 2. I can do like 10 instances of it, and my CPU will be at like 1%, and I'll be like, oh no, I'm really pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, and in fact, to be fair to Bias, they're not using that much CPU, but their real-time CPU is high, and that's the one that's munching it.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, I had pulled up the, even the Waves stuff, right? Like the Waves Archon, the PRS stuff that I just got. I was looking at the CPU usage for it, right? And the VST3 version of the PRS Blue Sierra, which is apparently the biggest one. If I look at the performance stuff, oh wow, you're zooming in real hard, like on my stuff.
Yeah, we're like, looking for the. Yep, there we go.
Virtually no CPU usage. Now there is some pre-delay compensation that I don't approve of, but real-time CPU is only like 0.3%.
Oh,
and if I were
nice
to monitor through it, which I did a little bit earlier, it would still only be up to like maybe 2%. I mean, I have a pretty beefy computer, but that's nothing compared to Bias, which gets up to like 15-20%.
Yep. And once you get near the 20s, that's when Reaper's going to start skipping on you. It won't necessarily record that skip. Oh, that's another thing. Right now, the current ones of these Behringer drivers, there is a problem where they kind of desync every once in a while. You might find some digital glitches in your recording. They're working on that, they say. So hopefully that'll go away. So I'm running an older version of the M32 driver right now.
I mean, I'm running real smooth with all the amp sims I could ever dream of. But the moment I open Bias, man, I think Bias broke itself recently. Let me see. I don't want to call any names out, but oh boy. Yep. Yeah, no, I can't use Bias anymore for whatever reason. It just shows me a black screen.
I speak to those guys as often as I can, and I think a lot of people saw I made them kind of a roadmap last year, and that's really what Bias Effects 2 is. And I try and nudge things the way I'd like to see them go. So hopefully...
it almost just crashed Reaper trying to remove Bias. That's not
careful.
Good.
I have had it crash Reaper doing that, so be very careful with that. Let me see. I'm messing up my... I talk to them a lot, so hopefully that'll get taken care of. Because I love the way their stuff sounds, but if you want to be safe, just go to Audio Assault's page, and plenty of people like how that sounds just fine. Their stuff is cheap. It runs really well. I think it's built in WDL, so of course it's going to run good.
I actually think there was this one magazine or online zine or something that said like the list of the 5 best plugins for guitarists or something, and it was really cool because I was trying to look up reviews for the PRS stuff, and Grind Machine 2 wasn't on the list because it hadn't come out yet. It was like an early 2018 thing. But all of the Audio Assault amps that had come out at that point, like Bulldozer and what's the other one? Dominator? Yeah, Bulldozer and Dominator. They were numbers 2 and 1 on that list, and they were like, if you want a real good heavy-sounding amp that sounds totally different than any other amp you'll ever use, this is the one. Get this if you're a guitarist. And I was like, whoa, I know that guy. Yeah, but that's I'm a big fan in general of Audio Assault stuff.
Yeah,
I want to do an all Audio Assault mix. I really do, but I just need him to make a compressor and a limiter, and then I'll be happy.
So yeah, he's building his studio right now, which is so cool. So we'll torment him in a little bit. But so Chris Morgan's asking, my Scarlett 6i6 sample rate keeps freezing at 48K. Did it work around somehow? Any idea what's going on here? PreSonus Pro. Thank you. First time here. Love it. What? Wait. So you have a Scarlett 6i6 or do you have a PreSonus? I don't understand what that question means.
I have all PreSonus. I think he was asking me since I'm the PreSonus guy. Or maybe you because you have the information. We could either be PreSonus pros. I'm actually a PreSonus champion, so I don't know. I'd fight you for the title. But
Yeah.
the thing with the Scarletts is, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the time with the Windows drivers, they actually, if you don't disable them in the devices, so if you open sound settings and you don't disable them, it'll be under manage sound devices.
So like do not map through this device or actually disable?
You would actually have to disable them in Windows first if you're going to use them with the ASIO drivers, because otherwise Windows will take them, and it's kind of like a root mode where they don't let anything particular take priority of them or take ownership of them at any given time without being disabled in Windows first. So they'll lock the sample rate in Windows, and then you can't change it from the driver. So like here, you can see that because my universal control for PreSonus, which is just like the Focusrite control room or mix or whatever it's called, it's just like that driver, and you can choose the sample rate, the clock source, etc. So right now I have one of my interfaces on. It's not showing in Windows as it only being one. It's showing as two because the drivers. But you see how I actually have them disabled.
Yeah.
So my Fire Studio is disabled, so I can change the sample rate because it's not taking control of it in Windows and determining the sample rate that way. So I actually had to disable that. If I was doing that through Reaper, which I don't know if the person who's viewing it and asked the question is doing it in Reaper or not, but in Reaper, you can usually select when you're in ASIO mode. I'm just going to do this real quick. You can request a sample rate, and if it doesn't let you change it that way, because sometimes your DAW can actually set the sample rate and the bit depth without permission from Windows, especially if Windows isn't using it at that time as a main interface. Sometimes your DAW can actually take control of it, and then you'd have to change it in your DAW instead of through your control panel or your driver or whatever it's called for Focusrite. But I know I ran up against that one time when I was doing a mixed person studio where we were just recording, and I didn't have any of my stuff. I went in, and all I saw was this Focusrite Scarlett. It was like a four input one, and I was like, "Didn't you say this was a big studio?" And he was like, "Yeah, we got plenty of space." And I was like, "That's not what I meant. You wanted me to record like drums and horns and all this stuff." But yeah, I learned the hard way that either Windows or Reaper can actually take control of it. And so can Cakewalk, so can Pro Tools, so can any DAW that has a preferences section where you can control the sample rate and the block size and the bit depth and all that. So make sure that your driver in your DAW is whichever one you want it to be, ASIO or a Windows one. But judging by your problem, it's probably ASIO, I'd have to guess, because Focusrite really doesn't do Windows drivers that well, in my opinion. They mostly focus on doing everything through their proprietary control panel software. So that's all I would have to say is make sure it's disabled in Windows first, and then check your DAW, see if it's giving it a specific sample rate and block size.
So when it's disabled in Windows, it still lets you have it for your ASIO streams, and it's just that it's not available to Windows then, right? So you can do that in Device Manager then if you're. So you're saying even so I have a problem with because I'm also using Windows sounds to play like Guitar Pro and YouTube and stuff when we're teaching here. I still have to let Windows control stuff, and so the Behringer drivers notoriously will just jump sample rates on you and it may skip your DAW, it may not, it may just cause garbling or whatever. So I can't wait to have the Dante thing back on so that it just can't jump my it can't change my sample rate. Or I could put a second sound card in on my computer, which I was doing for a while, which is probably the smarter thing to do, and just leave it on there. But I don't know, I keep not doing it.
If you do that, there's actually some cool stuff you can do in some of the more recent versions of Windows, where you can actually go to the app volume and device preferences and send the output of just like the system sounds somewhere. You can send just the like I could send Steam or just Skype to a different output, and so you could actually have a dedicated Windows interface like I do here, and also not have to disable your other speakers, but you could just send whatever programs are using them to a different set of interfaces. So if you had like a really cheap, I don't know, Alesis. Say you got like a $40 Alesis with just like 2 ins, 2 outs, and they're all TRS, and you just need to send them to your headphone amp. You can actually use that in Windows and use something else in Reaper and send them all to the same headphone amp, or send it however you want through a mixer or whatever. Like, there's a whole bunch of configurations for sound and routing I/O, but now you can also do it here in this convenient little Windows app volume and device preferences thing.
Yeah, that's
if you have
unreal.
the newest versions of.
Because I actually did a show on this where I was fighting for years and years and years to move audio around between programs. That looks pretty awesome, but my version of Windows, I don't see that on there. What is how do you get there, or is it maybe just the wrong window?
In the sound thing itself, so like if you scroll over to where it says speakers or your Clark Technics, oh wow, and you see where it says input, it's going to be below input.
Okay.
Scroll down further.
Oh,
there it is, app volume and device preferences.
Oh, wow.
It's an advanced sound option.
Yay.
So now you can choose the ins and the outs for every program based on, you know, what you want to go to them. System sounds, I think, sticks to your default, but you can send that to
So whatever. I've been asking for this for years and years and years and years. Finally, this is so awesome.
Me too. It was why I was on Linux for so long. I mean, aside from the fact that I'm a geek and I love Linux, it was so much easier to make like a portage or a port audio or a jacked server and just patch things with the GUI cables than it was to do stuff like that in Windows. And now you can set the independent input and output. So if I wanted to, I could actually send my webcam right now to Reaper's input and do the audio from my webcam into the Reaper, because I'm not using the audio from my webcam on Skype.
No, but
because you can usually only use one device at a time.
Again, if you're using ASIO as in Reaper, though, that's when things all fall apart, right? So if you have Reaper set to ASIO, some other trickiness has to happen.
That's true. ASIO is really old. I hate to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, we may one day get amalgamated audio that actually works across many drivers, but there's so many things that can burp your drivers that it's kind of terrifying to me, and I'm kind of okay to just stick on ASIO for critical stuff, you know.
That's what I like about Wasapi and why I've been using it more than Direct Sound or whatever, is because there's actually a lot more you can do with it now than ever before, and it's low latency, it's comparable to ASIO, and it's really good.
But it could, again, get burped because of system stuff. You know, that's...
Yeah.
But even that is starting to go away. So, yeah,
I think it's
hopefully the future's going to get a little bit better. But, man, that new app settings, I got to play with that later on, because right now I'm doing the most complicated thing in the universe to get Reaper into OBS, and then Skype into OBS, and OBS into... I'm using all these virtual audio cables and all this crap. I mean, I've got it working, but man, it's frustrating. I think my life's about to get simpler.
Hopefully. And if it doesn't, you can always send a bug request to Microsoft, and the guys who are working on the audio are actually, I think, their own team right now.
Oh, wow.
For the first time in, like, Windows history. Which is why we got that.
Wow. About time, guys. Come on. Thank you to whoever did it. I heard that we have a couple insiders in there now, so thank you to insider guys, and go ahead and post on the forum and brag, because we really appreciate you.
I'm gonna have to go soon. I have to do dinner with my wife.
Okay, so yeah, sorry. So we keep digressing on this. I mean, I could go into this for forever, but I would say if you're doing a really if you what you really need to record, instead of listening to the turkeys out there that tell you got to spend $5 billion, and if you ever noticed, those same turkeys never actually have any audio that they can actually show you. Ever notice that? And that they will chicken out every single time I challenge them to an ABX test. When I say I'll put my guitar up against your car because you're that sure that you're going to hear it, Yeah, no problem, right? But they always run away. So let's just say, so like Phil's list here, and maybe he'll make this available to you guys later on. Your computer you probably already have, or you wouldn't be watching this right now. Maybe you're watching it on an iPad or whatever. Just get a regular old computer, you're fine. Laptop, whatever. As long as it's got a real Intel CPU in it, or a real whatever CPU, just a regular CPU that you run a desktop on, or a real laptop.
Get an i5 or above, and get like a Ryzen 5 or above. Anything 5 and above in CPU terms is going to be your best bet, because anything less than that, and you'll probably have to do a lot of trickery and like freezing tracks and all that stuff.
Yeah, and
plugins do get heavy on i3s.
And not whatever you call those processors that run phones or tablets or whatever, So your interface, like go to my round trip latency roundup page, and anything you see in the driver family that seems pretty low and is a decent price. Phil's recommended the Behringer stuff. I've gotten kicked out of forums and Facebook groups for recommending the Behringer stuff. It works fine. I will challenge anybody who says that otherwise. The Focusrite stuff's good. The PreSonus stuff is good. Your microphones, like he said, that 835, hey, those things are killer. And sometimes you see deals on 3 of them. I've seen them. Have you ever seen that? There's like a deal on 3 of those things together.
I have, and it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, you only need one, but if you can get 3, get 3. So that's fine for a microphone. Those $20 microphones that you keep seeing show up on Amazon, people have been making records with them. They sound fine. I mean, I would rather deal with a real reliable dynamic mic that you don't need to worry about phantom power for or anything. Microphone stands. So my first band, hardcore punk band in Aikahi.
We had that conversation earlier about the cloud lifters in past episodes.
Oh my god!
And like what they're still really cool, and I like how they work. I'm pretty sure they're just like FET, and that's about it. But regardless, I used a PreSonus tube pre instead of a cloud lifter. Stupid cheap. I got it for probably like $30 on eBay back in the day. It's an original tube pre too, which is the one everybody said was garbage. The SM7 that my client brought was running into the tube pre. The tube pre was running into the first input of the Behringer UMC 404 HD. And nobody complained about how it sounded. In fact, his band, who he was laying down vocals for, was stupid happy with how good it sounded. They were like, "We've never gotten anything this good. This is how your vocals should sound." And I was like, nobody's going to believe that this wasn't a cloud lifter into some SSL console, like with the SM7 being held up on a holy grail. Yeah. It was just a tube pre for $30, the Behringer that I got for like $100, and everybody was happy. Right into Reaper on my old ThinkPad laptop. That was it. And it was great. It sounded awesome. I didn't even have any of my plugins on me because I was on the go, so the stuff I used was all like free plugins and the default Reaper plugins. So I used stock plugins and free plugs to make him incredibly happy.
Yep. And like we were showing earlier, had I not forgotten my background vocals, the replugs would have been just fine, damn it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, you think about your ergonomics. So a mic stand is important. Your cables are important. Buy a soldering iron. That's I didn't put that on the list, but having a soldering iron and knowing how to use it as part of your education, that will save you so much frustration and time and money.
Yeah,
just basic electronic skills.
Having solder for your soldering iron always helps, and
which is hard to get here in Hawaii now, sadly. So if anybody wants to send me some 6040 old days solder, I'll be happy to have it. But good luck getting that in the mail.
All right. Anything else? Because I gotta head out.
Oh, okay. I'm just it's just basically it. So I think what can we get here? The whole package for $500 easy, right?
Maybe minus the computer.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Forget the computer. Sorry, you probably got the computer part already, but everything else, I think you're going to be okay in $500. We didn't talk about the room much, but in general, for when you're just singing, you will find a way to make it sound okay in your closet, in your bedroom, whatever. You'll find a way. But I
Yeah.
mean, we should really explore every single aspect of this thing later on. But just wanted to make sure that we're talking to you guys, getting some shows out, and in general, don't listen to the guys who don't have anything to show for it, that are telling you got to spend $5 billion. This is simple stuff, and hopefully Phil will make an educational website someplace that he can put these lists on there, and and maybe with
It's
his
so
Google
easy.
thing.
Like a lot of this stuff is just stuff that you can experience and figure out for yourself, but why should you have to when there's so much gold out there that people have been using forever? And
Yeah.
everybody's going to call it a secret weapon, but really it's just the stuff people picked up so they could try and make stuff they wanted. Like, I don't know. I was blown away when I heard a PGA 58 the first time because I hated the PGs and I hated the SMs. I was going beta 58 every time I wanted a 58. That's expensive. That's like $200. And here, the the one that's like $50 ends up being the one that I like more than the one that's 100.
Yeah, and I'll
So
tell you, if anybody wants to go and search it, I got a couple of videos up of where I bought a $100 pile drum mic set, and
I
it's
have that set too. I've
sounds
used it on
killer.
so many records.
Yeah, I've got some videos up where it ended up turning out just fine. If you can't make a good sound out of that, it ain't the mic's fault. It ain't the gear's fault. It ain't anything's fault. It's your fault. It'll work. And that comes to the big part, education, because that's going to be the trick. And yeah, I agree with Phil that the actual what is $75,000 for some of these schools now. Good luck. I'll put in a good plug for the Mesa Community College one, but aside from that,
If I had just gone to school online through like Nail the Mix and all those things that they've been doing, I probably would have learned more relevant, with the exception of electronics and the physics. The reason I went is because I wanted a physics degree.
yeah, but that's
Really.
not
So I got
full
what I wanted
sail,
out of
and that's not the conservatory where you learn physics. You learn physics at a real college, right, or at least a community college.
it. If you just want to mix, don't go to college. For
Yeah, if you
real. Don't go to college. It's so expensive. It's a waste of your time and effort and talents. Learn how to hone those talents. Don't be stuck at a desk job because you paid $100,000 to do something that wasn't promised to you
yeah.
in the bill.
In fact, go join the Reaper contest if you want to learn how to mix. You're going to learn how to mix there faster than any school will ever teach you.
Yeah, or spend $20 on Nail the Mix and learn from watching pros and playing with the stems yourself. Like these are all things that are so I wish had been available when I started in like a decade ago because it would have been amazing to have those resources available.
Yeah, I wish there would have been an internet when I started. I wouldn't have bought so much
I
dumb
wish I
stuff.
wouldn't have college.
All right, well, I'll let you
All
go.
right.
Sorry to take too much time, but I really want to talk more about really fleshing out some of this home, beginner stuff. Really, because that's what I see people getting. It's painful to watch these guys just getting beat up every time they're just asking a simple question. All these guys throw all this marketing crap at them, and I'm like, man, come over to my place. I've got, actually I don't have it here, but back in the day, I had every single piece of gear you could imagine, and I can make crappy records with it. Whereas I could take some cheap junk and I can make some good records with it. So it's
Bring us
that,
your
that
questions,
education.
concerns, and compliments. Because we like all of those, and we're happy to help. And if we don't know, we'll find somebody who does.
Yep.
But usually, I know. I got a physics degree for crying out loud. I can usually extrapolate. It's all the same. It's all just waves, man. It's all Brownian physics. I don't give a hoot.
Yeah, there's not magical unobtainium in this stuff that these people keep. Yeah, I'm not going to rant, but we should rant. I do want to have an analog or just a audio magic episode where we talk about some of this crap, man. Like, we'll talk about it.
Told me there was no unobtainium, but it's right here in the Valhalla plate plugin.
Oh,
So
jeez.
I think you are wrong. It says so right there.
Ah.
See
All right,
that?
well,
You can choose the material, and one of them is unobtainium. It looks really cool.
well, now I got to go buy the damn Valhalla plate. But I already bought one of these things. So I
It's
spent.
so good. I put it on everything.
Oh,
Not even joking. It is my go-to reverb now. I just
man.
type plate whenever I'm looking for a reverb, just instinctually. I'm like, oh, I want a reverb. What should I? Oh, it's right there.
All right, so before people think they got to go buy some more plugins like I did this year that I really didn't need, I guess we're gonna let Phil go. And thank you for coming on. I've been trying to get you on for like 3 weeks now, man. Jesus, and you keep going on honeymoons and stuff. Jeez, that's no
I
excuse.
know, it's almost like getting married makes me busy.
And yeah, but we got to talk more about all this stuff. Yep. So yeah, thank you for being on, and thank you everybody who was watching and for the questions and stuff. And we'll see you guys later.